Commander Vextal moved slowly through the dimly lit corridor of the Zenthari science vessel Celestial Seeker. His once bright blue scales had lost their shine, now dull and flaking from lack of proper nutrition. The ship's emergency lighting cast long shadows as he made his way to the central chamber where the remaining crew waited. 3 cycles. It had been 3 full cycles since their engines failed and left them drifting in this empty region of space. 3 cycles of sending desperate signals into the void. 3 cycles of silence. Vextal paused at the entrance to the central chamber. Inside, 12 Zenthari sat or lay on the floor. Just 12 survivors from the original crew of 30. The others had either died in the initial explosion or succumbed to injuries in the days that followed. They had gathered here to conserve the last reserves of heat and oxygen as the ship's systems shut down one by one. "Commander," said Science Officer Nixara, her voice weak. "How much longer?" Vextal didn't need to check the life support readings again. He knew the numbers by heart. 20 hours, perhaps less. No one spoke. They had already said their goodbyes, recorded their final messages, and made peace with their fate. The Zenthari were a proud species, and these were some of their finest, scientific minds. They would face death with dignity. Vextal settled next to the ship's doctor, Krell, who was tending to a young technician with a fever. "How is she?" "Stable for now," Krell replied. "The medicine is gone. All I can do is make her comfortable." The commander nodded and closed his inner eyelids briefly in a gesture of respect. They had known from the beginning that rescue was unlikely. Their mission had taken them far from established trade routes, and the recent border conflicts with the Krax Imperium meant that the Zenthari Stellar Command deemed this quadrant too dangerous for rescue operations. They were on their own, left to die. "I wish to make a final log entry," Vextal announced, rising again. The others watched him with dull eyes as he moved to the command console. The system flickered to life, drawing on emergency power. Vextal straightened his posture, determined that his final words would reflect the honor of his position. Final log of Commander Vextal, Zenthari Science Vessel Celestial Seeker. Cycle 457, Standard Galactic Calendar. Our situation remains critical. Life support will fail within the next 20 hours. No response has been received to our distress signals. The crew has performed admirably under these circumstances, upholding the highest traditions of the Zenthari scientific fleet. He paused, his 4-fingered hand hovering over the console. Was there anything else to say? Any final wisdom to impart to whoever might find this vessel, perhaps years from now? "I believe our mission was sabotaged," he continued, lowering his voice. "The damage to our engines was too precise, too calculated to be an accident. I do not know who would want to silence our research, but I suspect it relates to the artifacts we discovered. The truth must—" A sudden crackle from the communication system interrupted him. Vextal froze, his sensitive hearing ridges detecting something that hadn't been heard in days. A voice. "Zenthari vessel, this is Captain Alan Miller of the Earth Alliance ship, Dauntless. We've received your distress signal. Hold tight. We're coming to get you." The central chamber erupted in confusion. Crew members who had been lying motionless moments before struggled to their feet. Nixara rushed to the communication console, pushing past Vextal. "This is Science Officer Nixara of the Celestial Seeker. We read you, Earth vessel. Our situation is critical." "Understood, Celestial Seeker. We're tracking your position now. ETA is 45 minutes. Can you hold out that long?" Vextal stepped forward. "This is Commander Vextal. Yes, Captain Miller. We can hold out. We did not expect rescue." There was a pause before the human replied. "Never leave anyone behind. That's our way. Prepare your crew for emergency evacuation. Our sensors show your hull integrity is compromised in several sections." "Humans," whispered Krell, standing at Vextal's side. "All the way out here?" Vextal shared his surprise. Humans were newcomers to interstellar travel, having achieved faster-than-light capabilities just under a century ago. According to Galactic Accords, they were supposed to be confined to their local sector, still under probationary status in the eyes of the Galactic Council. Yet here they were, responding to a distress call that the Xanthari's own government had ignored. "Scan for the approaching vessel," Vextel ordered, and a young officer hurried to obey. "Confirmed, Commander," the officer reported moments later. "Earth Alliance signatures detected. They're approaching at high speed." For the first time in days, Vextel felt something other than resignation. It was a dangerous feeling. It was hope. "Prepare the crew for evacuation," he ordered. "Gather all research data. Essential equipment only." As the crew moved with renewed energy, Vextal pulled Nixara aside. "The artifacts?" "Secured in my personal locker," she confirmed. "The humans won't know what they are." "Good. Until we know why someone tried to kill us, we must be careful with whom we share our discoveries." 42 minutes later, the Celestial Seeker shuddered as the Earthship established a docking connection. Vextal stood at the airlock, his ceremonial cloak, now wrinkled and stained, draped over his shoulders. As the oldest surviving officer, tradition demanded he be the first to greet their rescuers. The airlock cycled open, and Vextal found himself face to face with a human. The alien was shorter than him, with pale skin and dark hair cut short. Unlike the Xanthari, humans had only 2 eyes, and this one's were a bright blue, almost matching the color Vextal's scales had once been. "Commander Vextal?" the human asked, extending a hand in what Vextal recognized from briefings as a greeting gesture. "Captain Alan Miller, let's get your people to safety." Vextal pressed his palm against the human's in the customary response. "Captain Miller, the Xanthari science fleet is in your debt." Miller smiled, revealing blunt teeth. "Save the formalities for later. Your ship's core is showing signs of instability. We need to move fast." Over the next 20 minutes, the human crew efficiently evacuated the surviving Xanthari. Vextal watched with growing respect as the humans worked tirelessly, carrying those too weak to walk and treating the injured with unexpected knowledge of Xanthari physiology. As Vextal, the last to leave, stepped onto the human vessel, he turned for a final look at the Celestial Seeker. The ship had been his home for 15 years. Now it would become his tomb if not for these unexpected saviors. "We can talk when everyone's settled," Miller said, leading Vextal toward what appeared to be a medical facility. "But I have to ask, what were you doing out here so far from Xanthari space?" Vextal hesitated. The human had saved their lives, but the commander's suspicions about sabotage made him cautious. Still, they owed these humans the truth, or, at least part of it. "We were on a scientific mission," he said carefully, "studying spatial anomalies. We found unexpected things." Miller's eyes narrowed slightly. "Unexpected enough that someone might want to stop you from returning home?" Vextal stiffened. The human was surprisingly perceptive. "Perhaps. But that is a discussion for another time, when my crew is safe." Miller nodded. "Fair enough. Welcome. Aboard the Dauntless, Commander. You're safe now." As the medical team began treating the Xanthari crew, Vextal watched the humans work, left to die in the silent emptiness of space by their own people, only to be rescued by a species many Xanthari considered primitive and unpredictable. The universe, it seemed, had a strange sense of humor. And perhaps, Vextal thought as he clutched the small container of artifacts hidden in his cloak, it also had a sense of justice. Catherine Reeves wiped sweat from her forehead as she crawled through the narrow maintenance tunnel of the Xanthari vessel. The ship's design was unlike anything she had seen in her 15 years as chief engineer for the Earth Alliance. Biological, components merged with crystal technology in ways that human engineers had only theorized about. "How's it going in there, Chief?" Captain Miller's voice came through her earpiece. Catherine paused to examine a junction where several crystal-like tubes connected to what appeared to be a living membrane. "Fascinating, Captain. Their technology is, well, it's beautiful. But I'm not here to admire it." She continued moving through the tunnel, careful not to disturb anything unnecessarily. The Celestial Seeker was still on emergency power, its systems barely functioning. Her job was to assess whether the ship could be salvaged, or if they needed to retrieve any essential equipment before it failed completely. 20 minutes later, Catherine emerged from the access hatch back onto the Dauntless, her uniform stained, with blue-green fluid that served as coolant in the alien vessel. Captain Miller and First Officer Ryan Weber waited for her report. "Well?" Miller asked, his weathered face creased with concern. Catherine shook her head. "The damage is extensive, Captain. Their life support would have failed in hours just as they estimated." She pulled out her datapad and displayed a schematic of the Zenthari engine system. "But here's what's interesting. This wasn't a random failure." Weber leaned closer. "Explain." "The damage pattern is too precise," Catherine said, highlighting several points on the display. "Key junctions were targeted, components melted in a way that suggests directed energy. Someone knew exactly where to hit them to ensure they'd be stranded." Miller's expression darkened. "Sabotage?" "Without a doubt," Catherine confirmed. "And whoever did it knew Zenthari ship design intimately." The captain exchanged a glance with Weber before turning back to Catherine. "How long would repairs take?" "With the right parts? Weeks. Without them, impossible. Their propulsion system is completely fried." She hesitated. "There's something else, Captain. I found data cores that appear to have been deliberately hidden in the maintenance tunnels. They weren't part of the ship's regular systems." Miller nodded slowly. "Our guests have secrets. Keep this between us for now. I want to speak with Commander Vextel myself." In the medical bay of the Dauntless, Dr. Olivia Hayes moved from one Zenthari patient to another, checking vital signs and adjusting treatments. Her background in xenobiology made her one of the few human doctors qualified to treat alien species. But even she was learning as she went. "Their physiology is remarkable," she said to her assistant. "Look at how quickly this tissue is regenerating." The Zenthari called Krell, who had identified himself as their doctor, watched her work with four-faceted eyes that missed nothing. "You seem quite knowledgeable about our biology, Dr. Hayes." Olivia smiled. "I studied your medical journals during my training, but reading about something and actually treating patients are very different." "Yet you saved Technician Mira's life," Krell observed. "She would have died without your intervention." "Your people are strong," Olivia replied. "They survived 3 cycles with minimal life support. That's impressive." Krell moved closer, lowering his voice. "May I ask why your ship was in this region? It's far from your usual territory." Olivia hesitated, aware that she wasn't authorized to discuss the Dauntless's mission. "I'm sure Captain Miller will be happy to discuss that with your commander." As if summoned by her words, Miller entered the medical bay, his tall frame commanding attention immediately. "Dr. Hayes, how are our guests doing?" "Much better, Captain. Their natural healing abilities are accelerated now that they're receiving proper nutrition and oxygen levels." Miller nodded. "Good. Is Commander Vextel available to talk?" "I am here, Captain Miller." The Zenthari commander sat up on a nearby bed. Though still weak, he looked much better than he had when first brought aboard. His scales had begun to regain some of their natural luster. "Doctor, could we have some privacy?" Miller asked. Olivia nodded. "Of course, he's stable enough for a conversation, but don't tire him out." After the medical staff withdrew to the other end of the bay, Miller pulled up a chair beside Vextal's bed. "Commander, my chief engineer has examined your ship. She believes it was sabotaged." Vextal's inner eyelids flickered, a sign of distress in Zenthari. "I suspected as much, but had no way to confirm." "Do you have any idea who might have wanted to strand you out here? Or why?" The Zenthari commander was silent for a long moment. "Captain Miller, I owe you my life and the lives of my crew. I wish to be honest with you, but I must first ask, what was your ship doing in this region? It is far from human space." Miller considered how much to reveal. The Dauntless had been on a classified reconnaissance mission, mapping potential expansion routes beyond Earth Alliance territory. But the fact that they had found the Zenthari vessel at all was pure luck. They had detected the distress signal during a routine sensor sweep. "We're explorers," Miller said finally. "Earth Alliance is looking to establish new trade routes." "Without Galactic Council approval?" Vexital's tone held no judgment, only curiosity. Miller smiled slightly. Let's just say we prefer to ask forgiveness rather than permission. This seemed to satisfy the Zenthari. Then perhaps we have more in common than I thought. He glanced around to ensure they were not overheard. Our mission was also not entirely what our government believed it to be. Go on. Officially, we were studying spatial anomalies in this sector, but we discovered something else. Evidence of ancient technology far more advanced than anything the Council races currently possess. Vexital's voice dropped even lower. Technology that has been deliberately suppressed. Miller frowned. Suppressed by whom? The founding races of the Galactic Council. They have maintained their dominance for millennia by controlling which technologies are permitted to develop. Vexital reached beneath his medical garment and withdrew a small crystal container. This contains data that could change the power structure of the entire galaxy. Before Miller could respond, a loud alarm blared throughout the ship. The captain's communication device activated immediately. "Captain, to the bridge," came Weber's urgent voice. "We've got company. 3 ships just dropped out of FTL. They're broadcasting Zenthari military codes." Miller stood quickly. "Reinforcements?" "I don't think so, sir. They're powering weapons." Vexital gripped Miller's arm with surprising strength. "Captain, you must listen. If those are truly Zenthari military vessels, they are not here to rescue us. They are here to ensure no trace of our mission survives, including your ship now that you've made contact with us." Miller's eyes narrowed. "You're certain? My government abandoned us to die. Why would they suddenly send rescue now, just as we've been found by humans?" Vexital pressed the crystal container into Miller's hand. "Whatever happens, this must not fall into their hands." The captain tucked the container into his pocket without looking at it. "No one's dying today. Not your crew, not mine." He activated his comm. "Weber, battle stations. Tell Security Officer Jackson to get up here double time. And Dr. Hayes, prepare your patients for possible evacuation." As Miller strode from the medical bay, he felt the weight of the crystal in his pocket. Whatever secrets the Zenthari had, discovered they were worth killing for. And now those secrets were humanity's problem too. Security Officer Darius Jackson stood at his station on the bridge of the Dauntless, his dark eyes fixed on the tactical display. 3 Zenthari warships had formed a blockade position around them, their weapon systems fully powered. "They're hailing us, Captain," said Communications Officer Elena Martinez. Captain Miller straightened his uniform. On screen. The main view screen flickered to life, showing a Zenthari officer whose scales were a deeper blue than Vexital's, marked with silver patterns that indicated high rank. "Earth vessel," the Zenthari said without preamble. "This is Fleet Commander Zorax of the Zenthari Defense Force. You have interfered with a restricted operation. Power down your systems and prepare to be boarded." Miller stepped forward. "Fleet Commander, this is Captain Alan Miller of the Earth Alliance vessel Dauntless. We responded to a distress signal from the science vessel Celestial Seeker. We have 12 survivors aboard receiving medical treatment." "That vessel and its crew are Zenthari property," Zorax replied coldly. "Their mission was classified. By aiding them, you have violated multiple sections of the Galactic Accords." First Officer Ryan Weber leaned close to Miller. "Sir, they're moving into attack positions." Miller nodded slightly, then addressed the Zenthari commander again. "We acted according to the Universal Distress Protocol, which supersedes national boundaries. These people were dying. And now you will die with them if you do not comply," Zorax said. "You have 5 minutes to power down and prepare for boarding." The transmission cut off abruptly. "Options?" Miller asked, looking around at his bridge crew. Darius stepped forward. "Their ships outgun us 3-1, Captain. In a direct fight, we don't stand a chance." "Can we outrun them?" Miller asked. Catherine Reeves, who had rushed to the bridge from engineering, shook her head. "Not all 3, maybe 1, but their ships are designed for pursuit." "Could we use the Celestial Seeker as a distraction?" Weber suggested. Miller considered this. "Possibly. But I'm not risking the lives of 12 people we just saved." He turned to Catherine. What about the sensor? Ghost protocol we were testing? Her eyes widened. It's experimental, sir. We've only used it in simulations. Theory into practice, Chief. Make it happen. Miller activated the ship-wide comm. All hands, battle stations. This is not a drill. In the medical bay, Dr. Hayes worked quickly to secure her patients. We need to move everyone to the inner chambers, she told her team. If they start shooting, the outer hull could be compromised. Commander Vextal struggled to sit up. Dr. Hayes, let me speak to my government. Perhaps I can reason with them. Olivia gently pushed him back. Captain Miller is handling the situation. Your job is to stay alive after everything we've done to save you. Krell, the Zenthari doctor, moved between beds helping the human medical team. Zorax is not known for his reason, he said quietly. He is a military hardliner, loyal to the Council above all else. The Council? Olivia asked, helping a weak Zenthari female onto a transport gurney. The Galactic Council, Krell explained. The political body that governs interstellar relations. Your species has limited interaction with them. For good reason, it seems, Olivia muttered. Back on the bridge, Catherine worked frantically at the engineering station. Sensor ghost protocol ready, Captain, but it will only give us a few minutes of confusion at best. That might be enough, Miller said. Helm, plot a course through the asteroid field at Mark 227. On my signal, engage. At full speed, sir. That's dangerously close to the gravity well of the gas giant, the helm officer protested, exactly why they won't expect it. Miller turned to Darius. Prepare a spread of sensor buoys. Program them to mimic our engine signature. Darius nodded, understanding the plan. Ready, sir. Miller checked the time. 1 minute until their deadline. He took a deep breath. Now, people, execute. The Dauntless surged forward suddenly, its engines pushing to maximum thrust. At the same time, Catherine activated the sensor ghost protocol, creating multiple false readings of the ship on enemy scanners. They're firing, Weber shouted as energy beams lanced out from the Zenthari vessels. The ship rocked as one blast grazed their shields. Damage report, Miller demanded. Shields holding at 82%, Catherine replied. The ghost protocol is working. They're firing at multiple locations. Darius released the sensor buoys, which scattered in different directions, each broadcasting a signal identical to the Dauntless's engine signature. Entering the asteroid field now, the helm officer announced, her hands moving swiftly over the controls. The view screen showed massive chunks of rock spinning slowly in the darkness. The Dauntless weaved between them, using the natural cover to break sensor lock. The Zenthari ships are in pursuit, Darius reported. But they're splitting up to chase the buoys. Miller allowed himself a small smile. Good. Maintain course toward the gas giant. We'll use its radiation belt to mask our signature while we plot a jump out of the system. In the medical bay, the wounded Zenthari felt the ship's sharp maneuvers. Science Officer Nixara approached Dr. Hayes. Your captain seems to be executing an escape rather than surrendering, she observed. Captain Miller doesn't abandon people he's rescued, Olivia replied, steadying a tray of medical supplies. It's not our way. Nixara's four-faceted eyes blinked, in what might have been surprise. Even when facing superior forces? Even for aliens? Especially then, Olivia said firmly. That's humanity for you. The ship lurched again as another blast hit the shields. One of the warships has seen through our deception, Darius reported on the bridge. They're on our tail and closing. Miller gripped the arms of his command chair. Distance to the radiation belt? 30 seconds, sir, the helm officer replied. Divert power from non-essential systems to the engines, Miller ordered, and prepare to release the emergency plasma vents on my mark. Catherine looked up sharply. Sir, that will leave us without reserve power for at least 10 minutes. Better than being captured, Miller replied grimly. Stand by, now. The Dauntless released a massive cloud of superheated plasma from its engine vents, just as it entered the radiation belt of the gas giant. The pursuing Zenthari warship plunged into the plasma cloud, its sensors momentarily blinded. "We've lost them," Weber exclaimed, checking the tactical display. "The radiation belt is masking our position, and the plasma cloud disrupted their tracking systems." Miller didn't relax yet. "Maintain course through the belt. Once we reach the far side, plot a jump to the nearest Earth Alliance outpost." "That would be Outpost 7, sir," Elena said. 7 hours at maximum FTL. "Make it so," Miller confirmed. "And someone get down to medical and check on our guests. I want to make sure they're all right after that roller coaster ride." Darius volunteered, leaving his station to a junior officer. As the security chief made his way through the ship's corridors, he couldn't shake a feeling of unease. The Zenthari government had left their own people to die, then tried to kill them, and now the humans too, when they were rescued. Whatever Commander Vextal had discovered, it was significant enough to kill for. And now, Earth was involved. When Darius entered the medical bay, he found Dr. Hayes and her team stabilizing patients who had been jostled during the escape. Commander Vextal sat on the edge of his bed looking remarkably composed despite the situation. "Officer Jackson," Vextal greeted him. "Your captain is quite skilled." "He's gotten us out of tight spots before," Darius replied cautiously. Vextal's inner eyelids flickered. "But perhaps not with the Zenthari military in pursuit. This situation is unprecedented." "Why are your people so determined to silence you?" Darius asked bluntly. The Zenthari commander glanced around at his crew before answering. "Because what we discovered threatens the foundation of galactic politics. And now, by helping us, your people are involved too." "Involved in what exactly?" "A truth that has been hidden for 20,000 years," Vextal said softly. "One that will change everything, especially for species like yours." Commander Jack Wilson had not expected to find himself at remote Earth Alliance Outpost 7 examining alien artifacts. Yet here he was. The military intelligence officer leaned forward, studying the crystal container that Captain Miller had placed on the conference room table. "And you're certain this information is authentic?" Wilson asked, looking at Vextal. The Zenthari commander, now recovered enough to attend the meeting, nodded. "My team verified the data multiple times. What you see there is genuine." 7 hours after their escape from the Zenthari warships, the Dauntless had reached Outpost 7, a small research station orbiting a distant moon. Commander Wilson had arrived shortly after, sent by Earth Alliance intelligence to assess the situation. Captain Miller activated the device. A holographic display appeared above the table, showing complex schematics for what appeared to be an advanced propulsion system. "This is just one piece," Vextal explained. "We discovered dozens of similar artifacts at an abandoned site. The technology is far beyond anything currently in use even by the eldest council races." Catherine Reeves studied the schematics with growing excitement. "This drive system would be at least 3 times more efficient than our current FTL technology. The power requirements alone are revolutionary." Wilson's expression remained guarded. "And you believe the Galactic Council has been suppressing this technology?" "Not just this," Vextal said. "All advanced technology. The 3 founding races, the Altorans, Viridians, and Mox Collective, have maintained their dominance for over 20,000 years by ensuring no other species advances too quickly." Darius Jackson, who had been observing quietly, finally spoke. "Why didn't your government want this information made public? Surely it would benefit your people." Vextal's scales shifted color slightly, a sign of discomfort. "The Zenthari joined the Council 5 centuries ago. We've enjoyed the privileges that come with membership. My mission was inconvenient for those who prefer the status quo." "So they left you to die," Miller said flatly. "And when that failed, they tried to eliminate all evidence," Vextal confirmed, "including your ship and crew." Wilson rubbed his chin thoughtfully. "The implications are enormous. If what you're saying is true, the Council has been running what amounts to a technological apartheid system for millennia." "That is an accurate assessment," Vextal agreed. The room fell silent as the humans processed this information. Finally, Dr. Hayes, who had joined them after settling her patients in the outpost's medical facility, asked the question on everyone's mind. What do we do with this information? Wilson sighed heavily. The Earth Alliance isn't ready for open conflict with the Galactic Council. If we publicly accuse them of this conspiracy, we'll be dismissed as primitive troublemakers, or worse. So, we do nothing? Catherine asked incredulously. Let them continue to hold back progress? I didn't say that, Wilson replied with a slight smile. I said we can't go public, but there are other options. Miller leaned forward. What are you suggesting, Commander? The Xanthari aren't the only species chafing under Council restrictions, Wilson explained. Earth intelligence has monitored communications suggesting discontent among at least a dozen mid-tier civilizations. Vextal's inner eyelids flickered with interest. You propose an alliance? Not an official one. That would violate too many treaties, but an understanding perhaps. A sharing of information and resources outside official channels. Dr. Hayes nodded slowly. A technological resistance movement. Exactly, Wilson confirmed. We start small, medical technologies, agricultural, improvements, things that could be explained as natural development. Darius, ever practical, raised a concern. The Council will suspect cooperation if multiple species begin advancing simultaneously. Not if we're careful, Catherine countered. We implement changes gradually, starting with technologies that are next in the natural development cycle for each species. Miller turned to Vextal. Would other Xanthari support this approach? Those who aren't loyal to the Council? There are many who question our subservience, Vextal said. Scientists primarily, but also some in the military who resent Council restrictions on our defensive capabilities. And other species, Wilson asked. The Fraxians have long resented Council interference, Vextal suggested, as have the Nor, Collective, and the Taigani Republic. All have skilled scientists who would understand the value of what we offer. Miller stood and paced the room. This would require unprecedented cooperation between species that have historically been competitors or even enemies. Yes, Vextal agreed. The Council maintains power through isolation, keeping species suspicious of one another. Your human approach of extending help even to supposed competitors is revolutionary in its own way. Wilson opened a secure data terminal. I need to contact Earth Alliance Command. This decision goes beyond our authority, but I'll recommend proceeding with caution. As Wilson stepped out to make his call, Miller turned to the others. Whether Command approves or not, we're already involved. The Xanthari military knows we have Vextal and his crew. They know we have the artifacts. We could still turn them over? Darius suggested, playing devil's advocate. Avoid the conflict entirely. The room fell silent again. All eyes turned to Miller, whose weathered face hardened with resolve. No, he said firmly. We don't abandon people we've saved, and we don't surrender knowledge that could benefit billions across the galaxy simply because some ancient powers want to keep their advantage. Dr. Hayes smiled. That sounds like the official start of a resistance movement to me. A very human decision, Vextal observed, his tone suggesting approval. Catherine began examining the schematics more closely. If we're really doing this, I should start analyzing how these technologies could be adapted to different species' existing systems. The door slid open, and Wilson returned. His expression was grim but determined. Command is cautiously supportive, he announced. They're sending additional personnel and resources to help establish secure communication protocols with potential allies. So we're really doing this, Darius said. Not quite a question. We are, Wilson confirmed. Command is calling it Operation Dawn. Appropriate, Vextal commented. A new day for many species long kept in the dark. Miller looked around at this unlikely group. Humans and Xanthari, scientists and soldiers, now united in a cause larger than any of them had anticipated. When the Dauntless first detected a faint distress signal, We should begin by establishing contact with trustworthy members of the species Vextall mentioned, Miller suggested. Carefully, through existing trade channels or scientific exchanges. I can provide names, Vextall offered. Scientists who have expressed frustration with council restrictions in the past. Good, Wilson said. And we'll need to create a system for sharing information that can't be traced back to Earth or to your crew. As they continued planning, Miller stepped aside with Dr. Hayes. How are the other Zenthari crew members doing? Recovering well, she replied. Most are scientists like Vextall. They seem eager to continue their work, now that they know they're, not alone. Miller nodded thoughtfully. They came very close to dying alone in space. Instead, they've sparked what might become the most significant change in galactic politics in 20,000 years. All because you decided to answer a distress call from an unknown ship, Olivia said with a smile. It's what humans do, Miller replied simply. We help. Across the room, Vextall watched the humans discussing, planning, working together with an energy and purpose that was rare among older species. The Zenthari commander felt something he hadn't experienced in a very long time. Hope for a future not controlled by the ancient powers that had kept so many in subservience for so long. The revolution would begin quietly, with whispered conversations and shared knowledge. But it had begun, and humanity, the newcomers to galactic society, had struck the first spark. 5 years had passed since the rescue of the Celestial Seeker. Elena Martinez stood at the observation window of Harmony Station, watching as ships from 27 different species docked in the massive hangar bay. Once a junior communications officer aboard the Dauntless, she now served as the human liaison to the Alliance's central coordination hub, hidden within an asteroid field in neutral space. Quite a change from when this was just a mining facility, said a familiar voice. Behind her, Elena turned to see Admiral Alan Miller, his hair now streaked with gray but his eyes still sharp and determined. Though he had been promoted years ago, she still thought of him as the captain, who had answered a desperate distress call and changed the course of galactic history. Hard to believe it's only been 5 years, she replied. Sometimes it feels like decades. Miller joined her at the window. Any word from our Fraxian contacts? Their delegation arrived an hour ago, Elena confirmed. Dr. Reeves is already working with their engineers on implementing the medical regeneration technology. The station hummed with activity, as scientists and engineers from previously hostile species worked side by side. In one lab below the observation deck, Zenthari and Fraxian researchers, species that had fought 3 border wars in the last century, collaborated on a project to extend food production capabilities that would benefit both their worlds. The Bay Council is getting suspicious, Miller said quietly. Their observers have noted the coincidental technological advancements across multiple worlds. Elena nodded. Our intelligence suggests the Alturan delegate has proposed increased restrictions on interspecies cooperation. Then we're running out of time, Miller replied, his face grim. Vextall approached them, now wearing the insignia of the Alliance rather than his former Zenthari rank. The past 5 years had changed him too. His blue scales had deepened in color, marked now with silver patterns that reflected his status among his people. Admiral Elena, he greeted them. I've received word from our operative in the Council. The rumors are true. The Council has scheduled an emergency session to discuss what they're calling unauthorized technological proliferation. Miller sighed. So they know. They suspect, but they have no proof of coordination, Vextall clarified. However, they are proposing to establish monitoring stations in the territories of all member species. Spies, in other words, Elena said. Precisely. Miller turned to look out at the gathered ships again. We always knew this day would come. The question is, are we ready? Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Nixara, who had become the Zenthari representative to the Alliance leadership. Admiral, the Council meeting is about to begin. Everyone is assembled. The 4 of them made their way to the central chamber of Harmony Station. Inside, representatives from all 27 species of the Shadow Alliance sat around a large circular table. Some appeared in person, others as holographic projections from distant worlds. Miller took his place at the table. Though not officially, the leader, the Alliance had no single leader by design. He was respected as the human who had helped start it all. Friends, he began, his voice carrying across the chamber. For 5 years we have worked in secret, sharing knowledge that was kept from us for millennia. We've improved medicine, food production, energy systems, all without drawing too much attention. He paused, looking around the table. But that time is ending. The Council has noticed our progress and is moving to stop it. We must decide now. Do we continue in the shadows, risking discovery and punishment, or do we step forward and challenge the old order directly? The chamber erupted in discussion. Some representatives argued for caution, others for bold action. The debate continued for hours, with each species weighing the risks to their people. Catherine Reeves, now Chief Science Officer of the Alliance, finally stood to speak. The technologies we've recovered and developed together have given us advantages the Council doesn't know about. Our ships are faster, our shields stronger. If conflict comes, we can defend ourselves. But at what cost? Asked the Noor representative, their crystalline form shimmering with concern. War benefits no one. Who said anything about war? Darius Jackson countered. He had left Earth Alliance security to become the Alliance's strategic advisor. We're talking about freedom, the right to develop without arbitrary restrictions. As the debate continued, Elena watched Miller. She could see him considering every argument, weighing every risk. Finally, he stood again and the room fell silent. I suggest a middle path, he said calmly. Not continued secrecy, which will fail eventually. Not war, which would devastate worlds. But open declaration of a new galactic alliance, one based on cooperation and shared progress rather than control. Vextal's inner eyelids flickered with interest. You propose we reveal ourselves? Yes, Miller confirmed. We invite all species to join us, including the founding council races. We make it clear that we seek partnership, not conflict. We show them that we've surpassed the need for their oversight. A bold move, Nixara observed. Humanity specializes in bold moves, Miller replied with a slight smile. It's gotten us this far. The representatives discussed the proposal intently. Gradually, a consensus emerged. They would reveal the alliance publicly and extend an open invitation to all species to join them. 3 weeks later, representatives from the alliance gathered on a neutral space station. Billions across the galaxy watched the transmission as Admiral Miller prepared to address them. People of the galaxy, he began, his voice calm and clear. For too long, artificial barriers have been placed between us, between our peoples, our technologies, our potential. Today, we choose a different path. As he spoke, ships from all Alliance species moved into formation around the station, a show of unity and strength. We extend an invitation to all species, including the founding council races, to join us in this new era, Miller continued. We have survived in the cold of space, alone, isolated, left to die. We have learned that our greatest strength comes not from hoarding knowledge, but from sharing it. In her position beside him, Elena felt pride swell in her chest. The human who had answered a distress call from a dying alien ship now stood before the galaxy, offering a new way forward. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Across the galaxy, species that had been denied full participation in galactic affairs for centuries rallied to the Alliance's call. The Council, faced with this unified front, found its power base eroding hour by hour. Later, as Miller and Elena watched the reports of new worlds declaring for the Alliance, she asked, "Did you ever imagine it would come to this when you picked up that distress signal 5 years ago?" Miller shook his head. "I just did what any human would do. You don't leave people to die alone in the silence of space." Vextal joined them, gazing out at the stars. "Your people have a strange way of seeing the universe, Admiral. Most species look to the stars and see resources to claim, territory to control." "And what do humans see?" Elena asked. Miller smiled. "Neighbors we haven't met yet. On worlds across the galaxy, species that had once feared each other began working together openly. Technologies that had been suppressed for millennia transformed lives, bringing health and prosperity to billions. And it had all begun with a simple human principle. You don't leave people behind, even strangers, even aliens, especially not to die alone in the silence of space.